Today's conversation is with actor, director, writer, and producer Tijuana Ricks, an artist whose work spans more than 100 episodes of television, including the Marvel Netflix universe as reporter Tembi Wallace in Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist, multiple seasons of Billions as attorney Tanell T. Burton, and most recently on Hulu's Tiny Beautiful Things. But before the credits, there's the origin story. Tijuana was raised in a big, loud, Black Creole matriarchy in Gramercy, Louisiana. Women who taught her how to take up space, how to use her voice, and how to keep certain truths behind the eyes, because mystery is part of the art. In our conversation today, Tijuana asks us a necessary question. Are you actually happy? She challenges this idea that persistence alone is virtuous. She speaks candidly about what happens when we continue doing what we think we should be doing simply because we've invested so much time, identity, and energy into it. And she reminds us that life is shaped by what we wake up every morning thinking about and doing. This episode is about listening, about asking the hard questions, about joy, sustainability, and the life you're actually living. Tijuana offers us a masterclass, not just for artists, but for anyone who has ever stayed too long in something that no longer brings them joy. This is At the Podium, and I'm Patrick Huey. Today we're talking about origin, representation, and what it means to take up space in a life that truly belongs to you with Tijuana Ricks. But before we begin, make sure you subscribe, share, and leave great reviews below to support my podcast. Born and raised in Gramercy, Louisiana, Tijuana received her BA in acting and psychology at Washington University in St. Louis. She then went on to get her MFA in acting from the Yale School of Drama, where she was awarded the Herschel Williams Prize for Outstanding Ability in Acting and was a recipient of the Rebecca West Scholarship. She is currently the founder of her own production company, Some Folks Productions. Tijuana, welcome to At the Podium.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So you and I both went to Yale, and your first year was my last year. So we didn't actually meet. I was doing a little research on you, and you've had what I would call a very unique career in this business. And you smile because you know it's true, because
I'm a hustler, baby.
That's how you do it. But before we get into your career, I want to start at the very beginning, because you're from Gramercy, Louisiana.
Yes, a very, very small town.
I'm from Houston. Never heard of Gramercy, Louisiana, because we're right there next to each other.
And I mean, that was, we'd take trips over and go to like Astroworld. From Louisiana, we all pile into the car and drive down.
You're going to Astroworld.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how old I am. When I grew up in Houston, and in the summertime, the parents would drop all the kids off at Astroworld. No parental supervision. The park was full of unattended minors. So I'm like, they'd all be arrested today. That doesn't exist.
Yes.
That was the 70s. So when I heard you were from Gramercy, Louisiana, I was like, where is that?
But you found some stuff.
Well, I found what you said about it.
Okay, yeah.
I love what you said. You said that your upbringing there in a big, loud, Black Creole matriarchy influenced the person you are today. And I'm curious, how did growing up there in a big, Black, loud Creole matriarchy influence you and shape your artistic view of the world today?
Yeah. So Gramercy, Louisiana, tiny little town. Last time I checked, like the population was about 2,000 people, which is big compared to when I was growing up. It's one of those southern towns where everybody knows everybody and they all know your business and they all know your cousins and your cousin's business and all of it. Not a lot of people leave. It's one of those, you're born there, you die there kind of towns. And my family's not much different from that. Like, even though, most of my mom and her sisters and they were all, my grandparents made sure that they all got their college degrees, they all got their master's degrees, they were all teachers, they all like were teaching at the high school level when I was coming up. So most of my upbringing, it was like playing school and importance of education and
Yeah.
doing, you know, getting your homework and achieving. And, then there was playtime. We had a bunch of cousins, all of us being basically like picked up and dropped off by grandma and grandpa. So we spent a lot of time together. And my siblings and my cousins, we were raised like one big group of kids.
Yeah.
And my grandmother's sisters too, where they were all very close. She grew up in a family of nine surviving siblings. There were 13 originally, and some who passed away as children, and then nine into adulthood. And they all had their kids, and everybody still had every holiday together. So we had this huge, big family. In the center was my grandmother's house, where my mom lives now in Gramercy. It's where they were all raised. My mom was raised there, her mother was raised there, and her mother was raised there in that same house. So that made our family a bit unique as it was, as we were a Black family in Louisiana who's owned property for that long. If you start doing the math,
Hmm.
we're pushing on like 200 years of like having owned land in Louisiana. We're talking like during slavery.
Right.
Um, so that sort of pride and I'm sure awareness in the South growing up, like at that through generation to generation, we were all given this sort of proper lady training. like, we weren't debutantes. We didn't do that. And I joke about it all the time to my friends. I'm like, they meet my mom. Some of my friends were blessed enough to meet my grandmother before she passed away.
Mm.
Um, Language they used, but behavior proper. But behind closed doors, the language was everywhere and still
Mm.
is,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know? And that sort of influenced who I am, like, as an artist. Like, I entered the room with, I'm 5'9", with every inch of me tall and proud,
Mm.
you know. I'm not a small woman either. So I take up space. And those women taught me how to do that, that there's no shame in that, that
Mm.
you are here, take up that space, use your voice, be loud, don't be ashamed of it. Like, we gave it to you, and don't have all your business in the street. That
Yeah.
was a part of the training too. And it's the same, as an artist, because I think that's some of the stuff that makes us interesting, the stuff we hold back. I mean, if you think about some of the more interesting performances of some actors that you see, it's always the thing that's behind the eyes that pulls you in.
It's so
And
interesting
yeah.
that you say that because there is a certain, I think, beauty and mystery to the artistic process, be it music or acting or painting or whatever that is. There has to be that piece that remains inscrutable about you.
Hmm.
That, and it's hard to do that now where, we know what you had for dinner because it's on
I know everybody's taking pictures of it and
and
sharing it.
posting
And
it.
hmm
Something else
yeah.
that as you were telling me this story about your mom and your grandmother and the 200 years, and it's not something we hear a lot about, or it's not in the sort of, mythology of Black people in America, is that we have roots
Hmm.
long and deep. When I look back at my own family, I can trace all the way back to my great, great, great grandmother. And so I think what's really beautiful about your story and this this group of women who are generationally standing on each other's shoulders is that we have that connection, we have that legacy
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
oftentimes doesn't get sort of thrown into the sort of dialogue of where we exist in America today as Black people.
Yeah. And at this point in my life, at my age, I appreciate it even more, that upbringing with those women.
Mhm.
And I appreciate still learning from them at, in the experience that they're continuing to have as they age in this world. And I feel like at this age too, I'm starting to feel like I'm teaching them a little something too. Finally, finally.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you went to the University of Washington in St. Louis,
Washington University in St.
Washington
Louis. Yeah.
University
Yeah.
in
A
St.
lot of,
Louis.
yeah.
So how did you get out of that little small town? Because you said
Uh,
most people,
they don't
they
go.
stay
I
there.
know.
So how did you
It,
make that transition?
yeah, it's WashU, great school, by the way. They love to call themselves the Harvard of the Midwest. Like, I had a fantastic time there. I wanted to be a doctor. Specifically, I wanted to be a forensic pathologist. Like, I was a weird kid, but I was
Later, you'd play one on TV.
a lot. No kidding. A lot. So I started, I did the PSATs and all of those like testings and things like that. And I was, like I said, an overachieving honor student.
Yeah.
So uh I started getting information in the mail from, universities all over. Like that's just I don't know if they still do that. Do they still do that?
That's how I found Vanderbilt. They sent me something in the mail.
Yeah. And they were pushing hard to try to up, the diversity numbers. Like they realized it was ridiculous, like how few Black people were going to that school. So they were very attentive and very specific. Like they would call, they would send letters in the mail, which was very exciting at like 16, 17 to get a letter in the mail. And they asked questions, they were sent questionnaires. They wanted to know what you were interested in, down to hobbies. And they would target of like, okay, well, you like horror movies and Stephen King novels. Well, we have this class. Would you like to speak to this professor or this person? Like they were so attentive
Mm,
that immediately I was like, ooh, if this is what higher education can be, I'm in. Let's go. And then they offered me a scholarship. And I was like, all right, let's do this. I was ready too to just move on from that small town and
mm,
like get out to start that new life and like see what this is like. Like, what is it like to be on my own and in this place that seemed so exciting, that had
mm.
all of these things that I was interested in. And you get to form a new identity like that. I was
Yeah.
ready.
When you got there, did you know you were going to be an actor, or was that because you were going with
Mhm.
the idea? Because you were a psychology major and an acting
Mhm.
major. So how did
Yeah.
the acting enter the picture?
Originally, I had when I enrolled, I had enrolled with the intention of being biology and psychology and started taking the science classes. But one of those specialized classes, when they asked about, what do you like? And I was like, oh, I like again the horror movies and the Stephen King. They're like, oh, well, we have this specialized targeted sort of, they called it focus classes. So it gave freshmen the opportunity to have a smaller classroom setting and learn with a smaller group of people so you can find people with common interests, form friendships, kind of
Friendships.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got the opportunity to take basically higher level classes together in your first semester of your freshman year. So this one was focused on the supernatural in film, television, and theater. And it was, you were reading, you know, the Dybbuk and stuff like, and like, but also like watching Psycho and stuff like in class, like
Yeah.
you get to sit in a seminar situation and like discuss this stuff. And with that, you had to take an acting class because it was about performance, the performance of the supernatural. And so I was in this, the 100 level acting class with a bunch of people in that focus group who wanted to be actors, that were
Mm.
acting majors. And that was like my first sort of taste of it. And I auditioned for a sketch comedy troupe my freshman year as like an extracurricular. It was one, I was like obsessed with the state. I loved them, knew
Yeah.
every sketch by word. I could still like now, my husband and I joke about it. They had a reunion tour this year that's still happening, and I spent money that probably I was like, whatever. I am doing this because my teenage self would not let me live it down if I didn't.
Yeah.
So I auditioned for the sketch comedy troupe and I got in. And that just put me firmly into a community of performers who and helped encourage and nurture that desire. Because I always had it. You
Mm.
know, you're in that small town and there's no movie theater. We didn't have any drama club. There was no like expression. Instead, I was a cheerleader and I did like, quiz bowl and
Quiz
like,
bowl. Oh my God.
but anyways, that was the community that I ended up getting nurtured in. And I realized by the end of like that second semester, by the end of my first year, I loved the acting classes and I was slow to rise to the biology classes.
When you finished at Washington, is that when you applied to Yale, or did you take time off in between, or you went
I
straight?
had a year in between. I worked with a children's theater company called the Metro Theater Company that's based in St. Louis. I auditioned for them a few weeks before graduation and had a callback, and it was like, oh, great. And they're like, we'll let you know. I'm like, all right, wonderful. I got a call on graduation day that I was hired. So I was like, oh, picking up that acting degree. Like, they were paying me to act. And I was like, this is amazing. But doing that, it was a touring children's theater company. Total, I say bus and truck, but it wasn't bus and truck. It was literally like a van that we all loaded into,
Yeah.
non-union of any sort. And we just rode around the country, like from Florida to like Michigan and all over the place, like doing these shows. And I realized while doing that I was exhausted in that like my voice was suffering and there were things that like I did not have in my toolbox as an actor that needed help. And I had already been researching graduate schools before I graduated because I'm, again, that student that needs to like
Hmm.
have a plan. And before I left, my teachers were like, well, you should consider graduate school and had given me all of these like the information about the different schools and started doing some research on those. So I knew that it was you, if you're going to do it, like go to Yale, go to NYU, or go to Juilliard. And at that point, Juilliard was still just the 4-year program.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about that. So I just auditioned for Yale and NYU and I rolled the dice and I got into Yale.
Off to
Yeah.
New Haven. How did you find your time at Yale? I interviewed your classmate, your business partner,
Hmm.
Leroy McLean, and he described it as the roughest but most consequential, important time of his life. So I wonder for you, what was that experience like for you?
I didn't have as difficult of a time there. I just wish I had used it a little better and I'd leveraged it a little harder. I mean, some of of course, like the relationships that were forged there are irreplaceable. It's
Mm,
a place where you are forced to go deep and explore who you are. And I don't think I fully committed to that in retrospect.
mm,
Like, I feel like I could, like, there could have been more. And that may have been like a mix of, youth, because I did come out, like, I was only out of school 1 year before. And, these thoughts came to me years later when I was older and had more life experience. It was like, if I could go do that clown class again,
oh my goodness.
I
Yeah.
would. There
Yeah.
would be some different discoveries, I think. It's definitely a hard place to be so young and
Yeah.
be forced to look inward when, like, for me, I felt like I just did not have that much life experience to be pulling from to build the actor, to build that
Mm.
toolbox of like what to tap into for certain things and figure out how to go deeper into it. Or so, but I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, made a lot of relationships that are, like I said, like lifelong relationships. So that network is always great.
It is a great network, and the relationships really last, I think, the span of time. I think when you
Mhm.
go through something so specific like that, that it bonds you to people in the most unusual and kind of beautiful ways, I think, because you've seen the
Mhm.
best and worst in people.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, you see it all in that program. What did you take away from that program? What stands out for you?
It's interesting. You're saying you're as you were talking, I was just reminded of like our class is pretty well bonded, and I think a large part of that is because the first day of our class was September 11th.
Mhm.
And we had all just met each other a few days before for orientation
Yeah.
and started hanging out and getting friendly. And then the world turned upside down. I feel like what I walked away from Yale with is the idea that like relationships are going to get you far. You can like move around, collect degrees, go to different places, work different places, make your resume as long as you want. But at the end of the day and the end of your life, the thing that's going to be important are the relationships of the people that you made, which I think is another part of like my statement of like, I don't think I leaned in hard enough at Yale. I
Mm.
held myself back a lot because I was, I think, so young and still affected by that sort of conservative upbringing that I was still trying to be a good student and didn't
Mm.
realize that what that's another, I guess, takeaway that like sometimes to be a good student, you have to be a bad student.
I was the oldest in my acting class.
Really?
I was 27, which now makes me laugh. And I was like,
Which
oh,
is so, yeah, because we had some older in our
yeah,
class. We had a wide range. Like the
yeah.
oldest person in our class turned 40 while we were in school.
So that was the classes ahead of us had that. But our
Mm-hmm.
class was a very young class. I mean, I was the oldest by a couple months, a few
Mm-hmm.
months, which is funny. Well, it
People
makes the
in their
casting
late
much
20s.
easier when you have that wide range of people. People don't
Yeah.
realize that, but the acting classes do all the performances at that school. The rep, the
Yeah.
playwriting classes, the directing classes. It's all.
Yeah.
I was
And we
talking
were, yeah, and your class was pretty diverse. Our
very.
class was the again the reaction of the two classes ahead were pretty white. And then and then our class came in and they were like, oh,
Breath of fresh air.
brother fresh air, finally. I mean, I know I have some of the playwrights that I'm still good friends with. They were like, when your class came in, I was like, oh, thank God, now I can cast my play.
So I was going through some of the amazing stuff you've done. I was watching you this morning on Tiny Beautiful Things
With your
by the
classmates.
with my classmates. Yes.
Thank
And you're so good, by the way. Like I just, which
you.
not surprising, but so, so good. But I was looking at some of the amazing people that you have worked with. Laura Linney,
Hmm.
well,
Twice.
twice. You say the Hoffmans, Dustin and
Yeah.
Philip Seymour,
Yep.
uh, Viola Davis, my classmate, our friend Catherine Hahn, and I wonder when I work with people who have achieved that level of success in any field, I'm always a sponge to sort of like, how do you work? What do you do? And I wonder for you, being in some of those spaces, and what did you learn in that process, in
Yeah.
those processes?
There was a moment it was something, a scene was taking a very long time to set up. And we're sitting in chairs, and Philip Seymour Hoffman is there too, the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman. And he had just won the Oscar for Capote.
Mhm.
And he was very quiet and sort of reclusive a bit. Like during this, I think he was still like in a very contemplative sort of space for this role.
Yeah.
But that day he was sitting with us and just sort of like casually chit-chatting every once in a while. And then we were sitting in silence for a bit. And he goes, "What time is it?" And I was like, I think it's like 5 to 1. He's like, "What time's lunch?" I'm like, "I think it's 1." He's like, "Let's go to lunch." It's like, me as like young person on this set that has no idea what's going on. I'm like, nobody told me I could go to lunch. Like I can't just get up and go to lunch. There's still 5 minutes on the clock. I don't want to get in trouble. Again, rule follower. And I look over at Laura Linney, who's in the other chair across from us, and she's just laughing at me. Like he literally got up and started walking down the hall, and he turns back and he's looking. He's like, "Come on."
Let's go.
And Laura's like laughing at me, and she's like, "Well, he's the man with the golden statue. If I were you, I'd follow him."
I will follow
So
him.
I was like, okay. And I think like I tell this early to say that like I feel like moments like that, spending time with those legends of people, like just help relax me on set where I feel like early in my career, I was so nervous about like, oh, what I have to be, this has to be right. I have to work on this. I have to do that. But these are living, breathing human beings who are working. Like, it's your job. These are three-dimensional humans who are not just like genius robots who get up and like go and do the thing. And I learned that to just chill out. Like, and it will, be yourself and get that role. I mean, the character will come to you. You know,
Yeah.
you're cast for a reason. They saw something there. You
Right.
know,
Right. So
yeah.
it's interesting, I said in the very beginning when we started talking that you've had an incredibly successful career in television and film. People don't know one of the hardest things that you can do in this industry is come on as a guest star or a recurring role.
Hmm.
And you have done that over 100 times.
Yeah.
How do you do that? It's very hard to walk into a very established entity that is a TV
Hmm.
show that has its own very special dynamics. You don't know what you're walking into sometimes. How do you do that?
Yeah. It's humility and friendliness. And I absolutely appreciate every opportunity and want to enjoy every moment of it. Early on, someone told me, they're like, when you walk onto set, be as friendly and open as possible. Remember people's names. Be nice, especially to the hair and makeup people and the costume folks, and get the lay of the land from them because they know everything. And then you'll know if you're not supposed to approach the number one on the call sheet because they are in their zone, or if you're only supposed to refer to them as their character name and not their name. It's fun and it's an opportunity to meet new people and
Mm,
expand that network. And it's really fun when you come back on the shows and like when you do have those recurring things and you do start to get to build relationships with those folks on set and they're like, oh, you're back because you were nice and because you were friendly. Like they'll
right,
remember you
right.
and they'll take care of you. But I love it. I mean, yes, I would love to be in a home on a series somewhere, but like I am appreciative of every opportunity.
I was graciously invited to speak to the graduating class of USC, the drama students at that school.
Hmm.
And one thing that I said to them was, because we're talking about my acting career, when I stopped, what I'm doing now, this podcast, how do you do that? And the one thing that I said to them, I said that, and no one said this to me when I was graduating, and I'm sure no one said it to you all because we were so close in the same years that we were there, was you have to really create your own content. That was not a
Hmm.
paradigm that we learned in drama
No,
school anywhere
no.
at that time. But in 2016,
Hmm. I
that was a
started
big
doing
year
it.
for you. What brought that about for you?
I was doing at the time I was on another show. I was recurring on a few of those shows on the Marvel universe shows. I was
Yeah.
in Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist as the reporter Tembi Wallace. And Jessica Jones had all women directors for one of their seasons. And Luke Cage had all directors of color. And this
Mm.
was, again, representation matters based on who the showrunners were. But I think it was the second season of Luke Cage. And I walked on set. I'd been, I knew this crew, knew these people, and they introduced you to the director. And I met the director, and it was Millicent Shelton, who's this like prolific, like Black woman director. And I realized that was the first time in all of my career that I had worked with a Black woman television director. And it blew my mind because I was like, wait a minute, I know I've done a lot of TV up to this point, and I had to IMDb myself and go through to make sure that I wasn't making a mistake and I was forgetting about somebody or something. And she was the only Black woman director that I had worked with
Mm.
up to that point. And at the same time, I was helping friends like produce their like shorts and their work and had just started like doing some writing myself. And we were in like the phase of like looking for a director for this one particular short that I'd been helping my friends like shape for like a year.
Yeah.
And I looked at that list and it was all white dudes. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I am also a part of the problem. Why? And also, why do I feel like I need to get someone else to direct this when I am fully capable and I have the knowledge of the script inside and out that I've been working with them for a year and I'm looking to hand this off to someone? Like, I don't need to do that.
Mm-mm.
So I asked my friend and he was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely. You should direct this." I'm like, "Great." So it was the first time I like sat in the director's chair as we're directing this short film, The Vampire Leland. And it got into a bunch of festivals. We got a shopping deal. It was like in that feeling of sitting in the director's chair. And I also produced it and hired the crew and did all of that. And like, but it was huge for me. And it also, and then it sparked writing more and expressing all the other stuff. So I then started writing scripts and I have a few different scripts that were getting into festivals and competitions and things like that. And like now it is a daily part of my life, like writing, directing, pursuing that.
Do you feel that now that you're producing, directing, and writing, it's made you a better actor? Because you,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Way more comfortable when I walk on a set because it's not my be all end all anymore,
right.
you know?
There's
But
something
like,
I think really powerful in owning what you create. I mean, that's why
mhm,
part of the reason why I do this is I feel like I never stop being a creative person. I'm not necessarily embodying a role or acting anymore, but the creative part of you never goes away. And I
mhm,
feel like this platform allows me to use different parts of my artistic self that you can't do just in being, not just in being an actor, but in being an actor. It's a very, as
mhm.
you said, it's a very specific remit, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
very specific remit. So you have
yeah,
started your own production company. And I
yeah.
love the name Some Folks because
Yes. Some
I
folks
remember being a part of
productions.
the folks.
Yes. And we're not the folks, but we're some folks.
You're some folks. I
We're
love
not
it.
those other folks
Yeah,
either. So
those other
yeah.
folks.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and what is your vision for that?
Yeah.
Because you have some great people you're working with.
Yeah, and a lot of them former classmates from Yale.
Yeah.
Um, so Leroy and I had been like chatting, Leroy McLean had been chatting for a while about our, well, honestly, since grad school, about our like frustration with the industry and the portrayal, in particular, of like people of color. We're like, why is it that some of the best roles and the ones that we end up getting recognition for is the worst day of your life? Like it would be like
Mm,
the worst day of that person's life when like Roy and I both grew up in pretty stable middle class families. And there's, you know, there's a lot of joy and there's a lot of other aspects of the culture that don't get explored. Especially like I started thinking about immediate one of the first projects that we started talking about is one that I'm writing called Mama that's based on my family and that generation, that house and that generation of like women after woman after woman after woman and the younger generation of the girl that does not have a child and like does not like have a family, but that responsibility is still to go back home
mm,
and take care of your mama. And we want to tell those stories of like, as we our motto is the untold told, of like
mm,
the the deeper specific, because I am a firm believer in like the more specific you can get, then the more universal it is. That people can see themselves in that specificity.
right.
So I mean, that's what we wanted to do. We were talking about it for a while, and I was like, why are we like, let's just do it. Let's just start a production company. We like, who do we want in this company? All right. And we started making our list of like there was our classmate Tony Manna, who was hilarious and I've collaborated with multiple times on, we did a series together, The Core. There
Oh
was a
yeah.
political satire
Hmm.
during the last election. And our classmate Carlos Tesoro, he's literally the first person I met when I auditioned for Yale. Like we were in the same audition and we
Hmm.
showed up and we're like, oh, you got in, yay. My also frequent collaborator Kiara Motley, who we produced All Souls, a short film or a
Hmm.
short web series, I guess, about a priest who loses his faith in God,
Hmm.
starring another Yale alumni Michael Potts as the priest, as Father Morgan, and my husband Anthony Pirro, who is a screenwriter, new to the biz, but kicking butt right now, like collecting awards with his screenwriting. So yeah, we all come from different backgrounds and different upbringings, and we all have our own unique stories that we want to tell. And
Mm,
putting our heads together, you get that rounded perspective of,
yeah.
again, we can get even more specific when you have other people asking the questions that are not from that.
There's so many people who want to be in this industry. I wonder what you would say to that person, to yourself coming out of Yale,
Mm-hmm.
be like, do this or beware of this. What would you,
Mm-hmm.
that person?
I would ask them if they're really happy.
Ooh.
Like, because there's something in doing what you think you should be doing, because you've put so much time into it, and it may not be bringing you any joy
Mhm.
or fulfilling you in any way. It may be breaking you down. You have to be able to like stop and ask yourself if it's really feeding you. And if it's not, then you need to start asking the harder questions of, then what is, and what is it that I'm missing, and what is it that I need? If I feel like I need to continue pursuing acting and it's not happening for me, or um it happens in a way that makes me unhappy, that it's like one job a year or something like that, then what else brings you joy? What else fulfills you? How can how do you wake up every morning? Like, what's the first thing you're thinking about? You have to make you happy. That's the only way you're going to live the rest of your life.
Mm.
And sometimes we try to pursue those things that are really making us miserable. It's another thing I used to say to my students too, is like, if you are happy doing anything else, go do it. It does take a certain constitution. Like, you need to like have the ability to build that callus. Like, you don't need to necessarily have it right away, but like to build that callus of like, I know who I am. I know my worth. This does not define me. And I see it in, people I know and love, that like the getting, whether or not they get a job, they let that define them, of their self-worth,
Yeah.
and they don't feel, they lose all joy when they're not working, or if they don't get that role. And I can't, that's why I let myself like purge, cry, scream, eat the Cheetos, like do what I need to do to get past it and live my life.
Mm.
Because there's so many other things to be happy about and to be excited about. Not some job that you didn't have any control over whether or not you got it.
This season on the show, we're talking about legacies that people leave behind, whatever that word
Mm.
means to them. And I wonder for you what you feel or what you want
Mm.
your legacy to be.
I'm a Women in Film directing fellow, and I've been like
Yes.
applying to directing fellowships for a few years now. So I did the Alliance of Women Directors, Black Directors Advancement
Mm.
Initiative, and the Ryan Murphy half directing fellowship. And I'm still working towards getting that first episode of television, because I want to be that Millicent Shelton for someone else. I want it to not be a weird thing for a Black actress to walk onto a set and see me, or see someone who looks like me or her. I don't want it to be weird for people to see brown faces on sets.
Mm. Besides just in front of the camera, but
Yeah,
there too.
besides just in front of it, like, but behind it as well, which is another thing with some folks that is in our um sort of charter, is like, we want to make sure that we have equally like representation in front of and behind the camera.
Mm.
Like, that is the legacy I'm trying to build. So,
Mm. So I
mhm.
want to thank you for your
Thank
time today. I'm so
you.
grateful. I loved sitting here and talking with you today. It's been amazing. You're kind of blowing my mind a little bit with some of the things you're saying because you're like, you know, 'cause it's resonating past this conversation,
Mm,
which I think is really important. That, as you said, as you go specific, the resonance becomes even more powerful because people can enter into it. Uh,
yeah, for
Thank
sure.
you so much. I
We can
appreciate
have a further one over like a glass of wine or something. We'll
it.
do that.
Yes. Yes, without all the stuff around making it happen.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And to those of you who are watching or listening, remember, we all have a voice. We all will leave a legacy. Use them both wisely. Bye, everyone, and thank you, Tijuana.
Thank you.